The sound of metal clanged loudly in the valley of Elah as a giant stepped forward, his booming voice echoing through the mountains. "Choose a man to fight me. If he kills me, we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will serve us." For 40 days, Goliath of Gath, the Philistine champion, had terrified the army of Israel. No one dared to face him, for he stood nearly 10 feet tall, his bronze armor gleaming under the sun, and his spear like a weaver's beam. But on the 41st day, a shepherd boy stepped forward, a boy named David. The Israelites and the Philistines were locked in a standoff in the valley of Elah. Each army camped on opposite hills, separated by a dry riverbed. The Philistines, confident in their champion Goliath, taunted the Israelites daily, challenging them to send one man to settle the battle in single combat. Goliath was no ordinary soldier. His armor alone weighed 125 pounds, and his spearhead was 15 pounds of iron. He wore a bronze helmet and carried a massive shield. His voice struck fear into even the bravest warriors. Yet no one in Israel's army, not even King Saul, had the courage to confront him. David was the youngest of 8 sons of Jesse, a farmer from Bethlehem. While his older brothers served in King Saul's army, David stayed behind to tend his father's sheep. On the day David arrived at the battlefield, he wasn't there to fight. He was sent by his father to deliver food to his brothers and to check on their well-being. As David approached the camp, he overheard Goliath's mocking challenge. The sight of the giant and the sound of his defiance stirred something in the young shepherd. David asked, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His brothers scolded him, accusing him of being prideful, but David's words reached King Saul. Brought before Saul, David declared, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul, astonished by the boy's confidence, replied, "You are not able to go against this Philistine. You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David recounted his experiences as a shepherd, explaining how he had defended his flock against lions and bears. "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine," he said. Convinced by David's faith, Saul agreed and offered him his armor. However, the armor was too heavy and cumbersome for David, so he chose instead to rely on his sling and his trust in God. David descended into the valley with only his staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones he had picked from the stream. Goliath, seeing the young boy approach, laughed and sneered, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" He cursed David and said, "Come here, and I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." But David was undeterred. Standing firm, he shouted back, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's." As Goliath advanced, David ran quickly toward the giant. Reaching into his pouch, he pulled out one of the smooth stones and placed it in his sling. With practiced precision, he swung the sling and released the stone. It flew through the air and struck Goliath square in the forehead. The giant stopped, his eyes wide with shock, before he fell face first to the ground with a thunderous crash. The Philistine army watched in stunned silence as David ran to Goliath, took the giant's own sword, and cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they turned and fled. The Israelites, emboldened by David's victory, pursued them and won a great victory that day. David's triumph over Goliath became the turning point in his life. The shepherd boy was no longer just the youngest son of Jesse. He was now a hero of Israel. King Saul took notice of him, and the people sang his praises. But David never claimed the glory for himself. He knew that his victory was not by his own strength, but by the power of God.